It's gonna be 120 and in 4/4 time on my end, if that's okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, that doesn't bother me. Just I want to know what key we're in.
Let me just check the key. A flat minor.
A flat minor. Okay. Well, that's going to be a bit atonal.
I'm not happy about it either, man. What's your all right? Nerd question coming up. Favorite chord?
We've actually had this discussion on the pod before. I think.
Fuck, we are really nerdy.
Yeah, I mean that's music nerdy though. It's not like computer nerdy. So I think you've still got some cool points.
That's true. Different types of nerds. You're right.
You know, I've started to really get into a bit of a sort of extended chord kind of vibe. Like I like a bit of a ninth or an 11th and stuff. Like a little bit.
I love a ninth.
Just on the edge. Just add a little bit on top, you know?
Do you mean a ninth chord or just an add nine?
Well, you know, I'll take it either way.
You know, Tom York, I mean, it's so interesting hearing Tom York make music because he says he doesn't have any understanding of chords. And I feel like he says like it's kind of freeing. Well, I can imagine how it is freeing not knowing the chords because my brain, whenever I sit down at a piano, most of the time, and I'm just like trying to tinker away, trying to find something, I'm trying to not use chords that I know. That's what I try to do. Right?
Because your fingers go into those positions, and you're like, oh, I'm just doing like just a minor triad again. Why am I?
Exactly.
Why can't I? Yeah, shake out of it.
And I want to make new chords, but the thing is, the other thing you don't realize is that chords aren't the only thing about music, and we touched on this like last week, but you can have like an A minor to a C on a piano, and then an A minor to a C on like a nice synth, and it will still sound really good, even though the notes aren't that out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of so many aspects, isn't it? It's tonality, it's the instruments chosen, it's the melody, it's the rhythm. I mean, yeah, you're right that the combination of notes is an aspect of it, but it's not the whole picture.
Yeah. Where have you gone? Can you give us a little hint? Are we on, by the way? Are we on? Is this thing on?
Wow. This is like the start of I can't even think of the best example of a podcast that does that.
This is like when like a guest comes on, like
Joe
Rogan. So have we started?
Yeah.
This is the podcast?
The beginning of Berbiglia. It's like we've been rolling. Yeah, this is the thing. This is it.
Oh man, that Berbiglia podcast is my new fave. I listened to one with John Mulaney the other day. That was awesome.
I'll have to listen to that.
Maria Bamford he did, and she's just the best. One of my top 3 comedians, I gotta say.
Yeah,
Maria Bamford. He's a really good interviewer, and I like how they do. Like my favorite thing is like comedians. Like all the podcasts I listen to are just comedians talking to other comedians. I love hearing comedians talk about comedy, and they do a bit at the end of Working It Out, which is Mike Birbiglia's podcast. Check it out. That they just go like, here's the new jokes I've written. Like, they
it's
test
literally
out material on each other.
The name of it is Working It Out, in the sense of like it is comedians trying new bits and trying to work out an angle to how to like bump up a joke or whether it works or anything. Like that's quite an interesting take that you don't get from those other comedians interviewing comedians kind of podcasts. Yeah,
you kind of do. I mean, the ones I listen to, you kind of do, but it's I love it. It's like porn to me. I just like eat that shit right up.
Wait, what are you doing when you're watching porn?
I'm just watching eating, like old stand-up videos,
just like
from
eating
the 80s.
constantly.
Yeah. There's a great new documentary just on this real quick.
We have gone off on so many tangents. I was just trying to bring us back to where we are, but okay.
Called The Comedy Store. So if you like comedy, check out that new docuseries on Stan. All right, bring us back, Nick.
I don't remember what it was.
All right.
I had it and then I lost it. It was because we were talking about music notes and chords and things, and then you were talking about Tom York, and then there was going to be a thing, and then we got off onto a tangent because he went off on something, but whatever.
All right. So again, it's my fault.
No, well, I'm just saying that you're the one who did it.
Typical.
I'm not saying it's your fault.
Typical.
Just that you were the responsible party, I suppose.
Yeah, but it's always my fault. Like you didn't.
I didn't say it was your fault. I'm just saying that you were the one who acted in the way that caused what happened to happen.
Yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah, you know what? I've been the fall guy for fucking 7 years. I'll happily just keep being the fall guy. That's fine with me, honestly. I'm the stupid one, remember? I'll just go along with anything. Yeah, that's what stupid people sound like, I think. I wouldn't know. I'm too stupid.
We've really visited you on what should be a very ego-boosting kind of day, and it is clear that you have spiraled already.
I know. This is because I'm frazzled. I'm like the last 2 to 5 days for me have been so like weird and topsy-turvy and intense and like ecstatic and so weird, and like I'm in this weird zone. Like, so I'm gonna say weird shit. I don't know it. It's just gonna have to deal with it, everyone.
Can we talk about it at all, or do you want to skip this bit?
Yeah, well, I got some exciting news, and this is not the second take of this. It's been a very good day.
Yeah, and we hope we can talk about it more at some point.
Yes.
But in the meantime, I think we should do a shot. Do you feel like a shot?
Oh, I have to go get one.
Yeah, I don't have a shot here either, but should we go do a shot?
Oh, absolutely.
What are you going to have?
Vodka.
You're going to have a vodka shot?
Yeah, Polish vodka. What have you got?
I have a shot of gin, which I put into a stronger, heavier, bigger glass so that I wasn't just like doing a shot, a shot glass shot. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like it just felt risky to take just a single full shot glass into my bedroom.
Why?
I've spilt a beer over this desk already this week,
but why do you think a shot glass is less? Because of the surface.
Just stability. Just stability. This is a strong glass based contain.
I'm kind of amazed at how much you don't trust yourself in this regard.
See, this is reflective of our personalities, isn't it? This is me being overly cautious and paranoid, and you being like, fuck it, I'll see what happens.
Yeah, because I'm like, I've spilt a shot glass many times. I'll do it again. I'm drinking Zabrovka, which is
very nice bison grass.
Bison grass.
I have a Hendrix gin.
Well, cheers, my friend.
Cheers to good news. Clink.
Yeah. That is so good.
That really good. Yeah, that tickles.
Oh. So yeah, I will be a little bit all over the shop, I think, today.
That's good. I'm ready for this. This has been an all over the shop week. I feel like we've got a lot of good, fun, political stuff to shit through. Sorry, the shot just kicked in very quickly.
Yeah, baby. Woo!
So
Vegas.
let's go a little bit, loosey goosey this week.
Let's go hard.
Okay, fuck it. Intro. Welcome to Deep Thought. Let's just get right into it. This is a podcast. We love that you're here. We appreciate you, and you love being here because we tell you the stuff you already know. Sitting through the internet with me, Michael. Hey, congratulations.
Hey,
this is your space.
Thank you. I've got nothing to say. In future, just do what you did before. It was way better.
Okay, I appreciate that. And my name's Nick. Hi, Nick. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. No, you've already said hi, so that was me.
We've never gotten the intros bang up. We haven't found a form, which is. Don't you reckon? We've never found I interrupt you. We've never found the groove of the intro.
Maybe 150. Maybe episode 150 we'll get it right.
What we have found is I was thinking about this the other day about one of our older pods that what we have found is the flow of the chat that happens over video conference.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I sound really old there, but I think we found an ebb and flow. We kind of both know when the intro should come in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and cool. I think that we were also advantageously prepped for the era of the pandemic where we had good camera setup, we had a good microphone setup, we know how to use and record Skype, we know how to have a conversation where one person doesn't over talk over the other or interrupt.
Mm. Yeah.
And so that's why we...
You fucking did that on purpose.
Yeah. Oh, you did that joke on purpose.
I was trying to work out if you were doing it on purpose. Yeah. All right. So, do you want to kick off with this Trump?
Trump. I mean,
Trump
it's got to be Trump. Let's talk Trump.
How funny? Like, it's funny, but it's not funny. You're already dancing on his grave. You don't give a shit.
I mean, I am very much the person who doesn't think that we should be sympathetic to him. I think there are plenty more people in this world who deserve our sympathy before him, particularly because it's a self-inflicted own. It's not like, oh, he's got cancer. Oh, you should feel sorry for him. It's like, well, yeah, sure, that wasn't really directly self-inflicted, maybe. But with this thing, he did it to himself. And he actively made it worse for hundreds of thousands, millions of people in America.
So if something happens to someone out of ignorance, I think you would give them sympathy. I think the issue here is that he's done it out of arrogance.
Correct.
And ego and
complete psychopathic narcissism.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like to be fair to Trump, you're wrapping in, you're boxing in all of the shit, all the peripheral shit that you hate about Trump. Like, he's an idiot for not taking COVID seriously. But I'm just started reading Bob Woodward's new book, Rage, and it's so interesting because it starts at the start of the pandemic. The book starts with his interviews with Trump at the start of the pandemic, and Trump was very aware that this was a problem. He was just trying to act as if it wasn't. But then even behind closed doors, he and his staff clearly didn't take it seriously. They weren't wearing masks. They're still not wearing masks. Like, his fucking medical officer came out the other day to talk to the press and to give an update on the president's health. And the reporters were like, "How is the president? And why the fuck aren't you wearing a mask?" And he was like, "I'll wear a mask if you want me to." And they were like, "Dude."
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you need to wrap in other areas of Trump's failings and abuses to denounce him for this or to not feel sympathy for him. You can be entirely focused on the coronavirus pandemic and have plenty of reasons not to feel sympathetic for him. As you said, he knew about it. He spoke to Bob Woodward about it, and he made a conscious choice not to be honest with the American people about it. And why? That's the reason you have to ask. Why did he make that choice? Because he believed that it was in his self-interest to maintain, stock, the trading patterns and keep the economy boosted and all this kind of stuff, which was clearly farcical anyway, because the pandemic hit and made the economy crater and go into a recession anyway. But it was self-serving decision-making, as all of Trump's decision-making is. So when you come to the point in which, because of his arrogance, because of his narcissism, because he, I think, probably clinically cannot understand the concept of there being a person outside of himself, he makes these decisions where he'll go to a rally and he'll speak because it props up his ego. And he has a fan base which is ravenous and anti-scientific, and so they don't wear masks. And as long as they're turning out and shouting his name, he's not going to change his ways. And then he goes to all these places. He doesn't take the science seriously. He misleads the public. And then he ends up in a situation where someone gets coronavirus and gives it to him. I'm sorry. I'm not going to fucking feel sorry for the guy. Literally 150,000 deaths could have been avoided if he'd done shit differently.
I feel you. But would you feel sorry if he died, though?
I would feel sorry if he died, because that's a cheap exit, and he deserves lawsuits, and he deserves a life in prison.
You've become like a psycho. You're like, death is too
generous.
Generous. Oh my god, this is kind of scaring me and turning me on a little bit. But this White House, and it trickles down from the top, has just consistently and laughably wanted to uphold this aura of machismo and strength and, confidence that is firstly unsustainable and secondly just not true. at all.
Well, and thirdly, not even believable. Like this is the most strange thing about the Trump cultism to me. Like, have you seen those cartoon or like hand drawn images of Trump where he's painted like super ripped with like real muscular with like an 8-pack and like he's, I don't know, flexing and riding horses and that shit? Have you seen any of that kind of cultism?
I have seen that a little bit, but like, is he? Go on.
My point is that there is this enthusiasm for this machismo, which is so disconnected from reality, right?
It's like
he is
Putin.
held up as this, ideal, like this ideal, I guess it's the word I'm looking for. This ideal presence of masculinity and no bullshit and the physical form and like classic white straight man, like.
Yeah, but
That's
who
what
else
everyone
does
looks
that?
up
Who
to
else?
him. And he's like this obese old, like dementia-riddled 74-year-old.
So who else does that? It's fucking Putin.
Yeah, but at least Putin has some degree of physicality.
At least,
I believe
Putin
has killed people with his bare hands, you know?
At least Putin's got the bod.
He's got the bod.
Yeah, you know?
He's got the shaved head.
Yeah, Trump's got nothing. He's obese, isn't he? Clinically obese?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm maybe not according to the like medical reports they put out.
Can we just say that Trump, like, okay, COVID noted, obesity noted, KFC noted. He does kind of look like he kind of looks healthy for a 74-year-old. Like he looks like he could do shit.
Ugh.
Like not like run a race, but like I feel like he seems like he's healthy. He doesn't drink.
He can't walk down a ramp. He can't hold a glass of water.
You're bringing out little details.
Yeah,
That's bullshit.
little details
That's
like he can't walk.
You're doing what the fucking Trump people did to Hillary when she like collapsed in front of the van. Like,
no, but
you can't pick out little details like that. These people are being filmed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're gonna slip up. You're gonna do weird shit.
Just look at the way he stands.
I'm not doubting that he's probably very unfit, but I think
you just said that he was fit.
Fair.
You said he was fit for a 74-year-old.
I'm not. Well, I'm saying he looks better than Joe Biden in terms of physicality. Joe Biden looks like a skeleton.
Can you picture Trump riding a bike? Because I can't picture Trump riding a bike, and Joe Biden has ridden a bike. No. So I don't know where exactly you're drawing this, sense of physical prowess from.
I think that, okay, maybe it's not just physical, but I think there's like a mental alertness there. Like there is in Trump. There's a mental alertness there. Like at the debates, he was truly an abomination. But he was still he was punchy. He was punchy, and he was like he had jabs. He had a few good one-liners.
But that's not the only test of cognition, though, is it?
No, I'm just saying. I think
he's like
if we're gonna be fair.
He's like a broken tape.
It's not like Trump is like some slob, like lazy guy. Like I
think he is. I don't know where that's coming from.
No, come on. He said he
famously loves McDonald's. He drinks like buckets of Coke.
So do I.
He looks incredibly unsteady on his feet. He is clearly overweight. He's not as tall as he claims to be on his medical report, which I bring up only because it suggests that some of the other details on the medical report are potentially massaged truth as well. Yeah. And his brain is porridge. He can't say words. Like, I just don't know where this, we'll gloss over it a little bit is. He's clearly, one of the least capable presidents that have ever happened.
See, if that was Trump, we would have taken that little clip when you said cakeable, and we would have said, "Look at this Nick guy. He can't fucking talk. He should be banned from all podcasts."
Yeah, here's the difference. I'm not running the fucking world.
Okay, fair enough.
And two, he doesn't drink, so I'm at a disadvantage.
Fair enough. But I also. I don't know why I always find myself in these positions where I'm defending the fucking devil, but I do know why. It's because I want attention. But but I think just in the in the order of fairness, I think you gotta. I don't think nitpicking details. Anyway, let's drop me being bad at going into bat for Trump. It's boring.
The degree to which this trip to the hospital has been so fucking disastrous is kind of astounding. I mean, it is remarkable as a historic event. If like any time a president goes to hospital is historically remarkable. But then there's this added layer of what is true, which is permeated this whole, week or so, in which the reporting was not like the White House didn't make statements about it. It took reporters like unearthing things about Hope Hicks for them to confirm it. Then the timeline changed. The doctors were saying one thing and then anonymous sources were saying the other thing. And then he ended up in hospital and he was claiming he was fine. And he was putting out these photos where he was, signing blank pieces of paper. And I don't know if you saw, but they put out 2 photos which were meant to look like 2 different times. But the data of the image showed that
I did see that they just
apart.
reshuffled the papers. Like they got him to take one shot in one room of the hospital with like his shirt on, with all these paper. I'm just explaining it to everyone. Yeah. With all this paperwork in front of him and some folders, and then 10 minutes later, another shot was taken in another room that looked like, and it was the same like materials in front of him rejigged, but he had a jacket on as well.
Yeah. And clearly the intent was like to show, yep, he's been keeping up, his presidential duties, signing blank pieces of paper, etc. But like this whole, I don't know, veneer of everything's fine is kind of crazy. But then
it's pathetic. It's pathetic.
And then like the worst,
everyone can fucking see this shit. Like it's so lame.
Yeah.
He's such a lame president, man. And he's such a lame guy.
Yeah. But then there's like this, again, it just reveals his like narcissism and his complete like psychopathic lack of respect for other people's lives, because he was filming things without a mask on, like filming videos from the hospital room without a mask on. He did his bizarre little death parade in the Secret Service cars around the hospital, in which Secret Service agents were forced to drive him around, and he just rode in the car, which is hermetically sealed against chemical weapon attacks because it's a presidential vehicle, which means that all of the air circulation stuff was sealed into the car, and had doctors saying this is the most risk prone circumstance for the transmission of a virus outside of like a medical setting where you're operating on a patient. But having a person in an enclosed bubble with other uninfected members driving around the block is the perfect way to give 2 people those, innocent guards coronavirus.
Who are these Secret Service guys that are just agree? I mean, they don't work for Trump.
They do. They literally do. They're the Secret Service. That is their duty. They're sworn to protect the president. They do what he asks.
So even if it compromises their own health?
I guess they're meant to take a bullet for him, right?
What if Trump says, hey, can you get me a Diet Coke from the service station?
I don't know. Probably, yeah. I don't know.
That's hilarious. And poor Secret Service guys.
I mean, legitimately, those people are now infected with that disease and are going to have to go into isolation at the very least, if not recover from a serious illness. Yeah. It is incredibly
I'm amazed by this Kellyanne Conway daughter tweeting that you've been telling me about. I reckon you should just give a little back info into that.
Well, let me, before we get onto the Conways, let me follow that thread through one last, point for the Trump thing, which is that he's now left the hospital. He's left the hospital while he's back at the White House, and he's still infectious. He is still within the 2-week period in which he contracted the virus. All the science says that this guy is like a viral super spreader. It's already gone through about 10 Republican Congress people, and who knows how many people beyond that. The White House is not doing any contact tracing. They're not bothering to follow up. And this guy wanted to go back to the White House because he decided that would be best for his image. And then you had this thing where he was saying, like, I've learned so much about it. I went to school about it. I learned more about it than ever. Which, again, narcissism. He only started to really look into it now because he got infected with it. Not for the past 7 months when everyone else in the country was suffering. And he ends up back at the White House and he says, I know so much more about it, you know, I'm so much better informed. And what's the first thing he does when he goes back to the White House? He stands there for a photo op and he takes his fucking mask off. He takes his mask off. I mean, it is
fucking brilliant.
Like Shakespearean tragedy.
Dude, okay, that's weird. I was literally just thinking, this is Shakespearean.
It is. It is. He's now returning to his castle and he's going to kill all the people there. Like, it is.
Oh my God. It's so true. It is the most poetic justice-y thing ever. I mean, you can't write that better.
I mean, if you wrote it, people would think it's exactly. It's the kind of shit that Sorkin pulls, and he gets criticized for being like too like pie in the sky liberal, fan wank, right?
Yeah. That's why I had a great tweet this week by thanks to Jeff Shadow for being the only one who liked it, that the writers of 2020 have jumped the shark. Like, it's not even believable anymore. It would be even less believable if Joe Biden now gets it, and
Yeah,
it's a shit show, man.
The crazy thing about the vision of Trump taking his mask off, returning to the White House, is you can see how unwell he is. He is like struggling to breathe, like visibly from a distance, struggling with every breath. He's like doddering. He's like wobbling on his feet. He looks really unwell, which brings me back to what you were just talking about, the Conways, right? Conways are a fascinating family, right?
So fascinating.
Kellyanne Conway, who was this mouthpiece of the president for ages, married to George Conway, who was a classic sort of small C conservative, like the original Republican vibe before it went all nutso. But like has been an outspoken critic of Donald Trump, even while Kellyanne was actively working for him. Very strange, like dynamic, hard to picture exactly how that works. But so Kellyanne Conway was around the president and got infected. They have a daughter, Claudia. So Claudia Conway is, I think, a teenager, maybe like 17 or something like that. She's the daughter of Kellyanne and George. And she has no fucks left to give. She has been on TikTok this week, basically in full view, being like the political insider, giving tips to it's like if I saw the analogy on Twitter. It's like if Deep Throat was like, hi, yeah, my name's Claudia, and I know stuff from the inside, and here's what I have to tell you. Like that, in plain view, has been undermining or countering the Republican talking points for this thing.
She's doing legitimate journalism.
Yeah, but just as a pissy teenager who's like annoyed at her mum.
But that's the beauty of it, is that it's like her being kind of just a bratty teenager, but it's like she's somehow converted into this amazing
patriotic service. Yeah.
And one thing I'll say for the Conways is you know that they are having incredible sex.
Ridiculous. So like angry, hate-filled, passionate sex.
Fuck you sex. Yeah.
So Claudia, she was first talking about how President Trump's condition was not anywhere near as good as what the public position was. She was laughing and saying he's doing terribly. He's on all these crazy drugs, which sort of led a lot of people to think, okay, this condition has probably progressed far worse than what they're sort of pretending it has. But she was basically saying, no, it's not going well. It's all an act. And then the thing that developed today was so her mum had got coronavirus and tested positive, but had lied to her and pretended that she'd got a negative test and now she has coronavirus.
Oh,
Like,
my God.
I mean, this again like tells you the kind of crazy, I don't know, Republican sociopathy at the moment, where her own mother was not wearing a mask around the house, swanning around, pretending that it was all negative, when she'd got the coronavirus and hadn't told her daughter. Like,
Unbelievable.
unbelievable. So now when Claudia's going out and like posting things on TikTok being like, guys, he's not doing better, it's ridiculous, apparently he's doing badly, lol, and they are doing what they can to stabilize him. It's like, well, of course, she's fucking pissed off. She got a communicable disease from her mum who lied to her.
She's got every right. But how do you think, like, what are the logistics of letting her have access to TikTok as as like a PR or a public relations? Both of those are the same. A publicist person from the White House. Like, how do you allow that to happen? How have they not shut her down?
Well, I don't know that she's... I don't know that there's any direct way that they could stop that happening, right?
Well, she could be grounded.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, it's a parental
her
decision.
mum.
She doesn't work for the White House.
But how
right?
has her mum, like, this must... I mean, you and I are talking about this on the other side of the world right now.
Yeah.
They know that this is happening. It must be a cause of concern. I'm just fascinated that this is able to slip through the cracks, that she is able to text these highly kind of sensitive things as far as the White House is concerned, and for her to keep doing it is the thing that baffles me.
Well, I think you got to remember that there's another parent there who probably sides with her. George hates Donald Trump,
But
right?
then how does Kellyanne Conway not leave for her family? Or how is she not fired? How is it not that Trump's just like, you gotta. This is my Trump impression, by the way.
Okay, yeah, good. Thanks.
You want to hear it?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Kellyanne, you gotta nuke Claudia. She's a thorn in my ass. You gotta nuke her. Stop her tweeting. Stop her TikToks. Make it happen, or you're fired.
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's, a little...
I reckon it's better than Colbert's, I reckon.
Yeah, Colbert is not a good impressionist.
No, he doesn't try it. But that's fine.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Maybe in the future we won't see as much from Claudia, but right now she, of all of the Conways who are all variously unreliable, she is the one with whom telling the truth most aligns with her personal goals. Right? Kellyanne Conway's goals and telling the truth are sort of in opposition to each other. And even George, to a certain extent, like, he's still got a very much a goal of having a different Republican in power. But as the kid with, like I said, zero fucks, just angry at her parents for getting her infected with the disease and now forcing her into isolation, telling the truth to embarrass both them and the president, who she hates for getting her infected with the disease, is completely in alignment with the truth, right? Telling her truth and her goals match.
And it's hard not to read this as a symbol or a representation or a metaphor of the times.
Yeah.
That a 13-year-old teenage girl is actually
I think she's like 17,
truth to power.
Yeah.
On behalf of the world from the inside, essentially. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It is bizarre and remarkable that she is like the best source of truth for what the fuck is going on at the moment.
It's both depressing and fucking awesome.
Yeah. But even his doctors, like, imagine being clearly such a capable doctor that you've ended up tasked with the healthcare of the president of the United States, right? You must be top of your fucking class. And then imagine ending up in this situation where you're having to obfuscate the truth or avoid questions or not speak to the severity of the issue. Imagine the moral questions that come up where it's like, okay, what's my duty as a, I swore the Hippocratic Oath. I have a duty of confidentiality to my patient. I must act in his best interests, versus his duty as an American citizen, as a citizen of the world, to accurately represent the capacity of that person to lead the country. When you have mechanisms like the 25th Amendment, which replace presidents who are unable to exert their powers with the vice president. When you have like real legalistic executive branch kind of questions like that. Imagine trying to juggle that dichotomy.
There's such a disconnect. I agree with how does someone, you need to have a certain amount of passion and understanding, or at least respect of the truth, to even get to the level of doctor and get to a high level of doctor, and then to just abandon that right at the end, or when money talks or something. It's unreal that someone could get so far. It's like, it seems to me that people who get to that position in the first place are fueled by a sense of truth, and then to throw it away when they reach the top it's baffling, and it's really disheartening. As a slight tangent here, and it will be slight. It just reminded me. I was listening to a podcast, Adam Buxton podcast, and he was talking to Robbie Williams, the singer, and he was saying that Robbie Williams is like a song and dance kind of pop guy. He was not well respected by artists, but he's made a lot of money. And he was saying that David Bowie was his absolute idol. Like, he was God, and that's why that's why he became a singer. But then he joined a boy band, and then kind of things got away from him. But people, when they get to that level, they get there because the first thing is that they love the thing. Like in this case, it's the doctor. They love to help people. They love medicine. And just with this Robbie Williams example, he was saying the day that David Bowie died, he was absolutely devastated. Like, he was literally crying. He'd never met him. He was devastated. And then that day, a Rolling Stone article came out that was like the last interview with Bowie, and Bowie specifically slagged off Robbie Williams. And he said, I don't know how this guy has ever made a living. He's a hack, blah, blah, blah. And they published this post-mortem.
Yeah.
If that's the word. And Robbie Williams is describing on this podcast being in mourning for David Bowie, and then hearing that David Bowie hated
explicitly
you after the fact that he died. He was like, it's like there's no further down to go. Ugh. Anyway, that was a tangent, but yeah, I agree with your point that, like, it's hard to accept that people can be so good at their job, technically, and throw it away. Is that what you think that they do, these doctors? Do you think they throw it away for power? They the proximity to being the president, so they'll happily be a spokesperson. But I guess there's probably a line of those people down the block who are willing to do that.
Yeah, I don't know really the procedure through which people end up at Walter Reed, because it is plausible in my mind, that so much of the American structures and systems are more partisan than our worlds tend to be in. Like, the idea that the legislature appoints judges, and so then you have the Supreme Court being a real partisan fight between, you have a left and a right leaning judges. That's anathema to us here in a democracy where it's internally promoted to some respect. So I don't know whether the case is that at Walter Reed, when Trump came in, he got to like futz with the people in that facility and choose, okay, I want my doctor to be this person or that person. And so he ends up with hyper-conservative doctors who are probably very good qualified doctors, but who may be politically aligned with his policies. And so when it comes to a situation like this, where they're asked to disclose information on behalf of the nation or from the press, he finds himself aligned with Trump's wishes more than his real duty would be. But I don't know. I don't know if it's as simple as, oh, I'm going to throw it all away when I get there just for power. Like, I'm a
you're
little
a
bit more
doctor,
sympathetic to the idea that he's caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of his duties.
if y- yeah, I think you're probably right. But if you're a doctor, like, why does anyone know about your political views? Like,
It's true. That's speculation. It's a good point. I'm not sure. It just could be that, it's self-selecting. The people that want to help Trump at that facility raise their hand, right? I don't know.
I think it's closeness to power. I think it's enticing. Like, if you think if you
But what
boil
power
this-
can this doctor get?
Okay, well, let's boil this down to like a microcosm version. I know. If you imagine if there's like the bully of you're in high school, there's a bully, and he's mean to you every day, and then one day you get this like he compliments you, or like not compliments you, but like he lets you in a little bit, like
Pats your head.
That feeling of, yeah, I fucking hated this guy, but now I feel like I got like a little bit of his acceptance. That, I think that is what we're seeing in the White House, is kind of a manifestation of that people are getting kind of chuffed. Like, maybe they don't agree completely with the president, but the proximity to power is just so enticing.
But also, that's like abusive relationship dynamics, right? Like, where a person
Sure.
is completely shitty to you and then gives you one sort of bone, and you're like, oh, maybe he's changed. And then he's shitty to you again, shitty to you. I think that you can look at someone like Chris Christie, right? Who was sort of within the campaign and then ousted from the campaign and then shat on that, Trump hates him and has slagged him off, and Chris Christie keeps coming back to do things and then being like ousted or blamed for things or treated as a joke. And now the latest thing is he's got coronavirus as a result of this thing. And it's absolutely clear that Donald Trump could give two short shits about Chris Christie, right? Sure. Doesn't care for him in the slightest.
No.
And yet this guy who's it's clear to everyone else around him that this is not a pathway where he's going to get anywhere. This guy keeps going back. He keeps going back. So there is something about that, like,
Stockholm
allure,
syndrome,
right?
Yeah. And I guess Michael Cohen's another interesting example, because he's doing the rounds now, and he's actually served time for doing the president's dirty work. And there is a certain, I don't know if you've seen him on Seth Meyers or doing the rounds on the kind of left-wing media outlets these days. He's kind of a charismatic guy. Like, he did some really bad shit, but there's a real charm to him, and he's completely upfront and honest about it. He was like, yeah, I was totally in that circle and I got swept up in it, and I almost lost my family and kids over it. And he's like quite honest about it. And he's even said that, I think Seth Meyers asked him, if you weren't caught, by the feds or whatever, would you still, or if you weren't thrown to the wolves by Trump, would you still be swept up in that? And he said, I probably would. I'd probably still be there. And so I don't know how much weight you give to that, but there's a certain charm there to me.
Well, that's the cultism of it all, isn't it? It really reminds me.
And he describes it as a cult.
But it reminds me of the kind of manner and the upfront sort of truthfulness with which ex-Scientology members talk about it, like Leah Remini and that kind of stuff. They have the exact same language and same self-reflection and same, like, I did some fucked up shit kind of approach to it. And it's like their form of, they've exited and now it's atonement, and it's like PTSD, and they go through it with that same, a mannerism.
Totally. And I get it. Like, it's comprehensible to me to how you could get swept up in that. It totally is. I mean, I think we get caught up in many cults of our own, in day-to-day life.
Yeah. The to circle back to this doctor guy. So the specifics of his medical condition were being asked of him. And the press was saying, well, why are you giving him this dexamethasone, which is like a real, like, heavy duty. One of my friends, Chloe, who's a nurse, was talking about dexamethasone and sent through the description of that the New Zealand Nurse Association uses, or like the little fact sheet, and it's basically a palliative drug. Like, it has such severe psychiatric effects in terms of mania, delusions and that sort of thing, that it is medically recommended to only be used in end-of-life patients, because the consequences of the psychological impact of it all are so severe that it's not recommended unless the person's basically going to die anyway.
Wait, so Trump has taken this?
Trump has taken this drug for his breathing. And that's one of those things where it's like, okay, you're saying that he had very minor symptoms, but then the press would ask him, well, did you see a drop in blood oxygen levels? Did you see, pneumonia in the lungs and these kind of things? And he would decline to answer. And I just find that question of your loyalties so fascinating, right? Like, there is a duty to inform the public whether the president of the United States is of sound mind and capable of, utilizing the powers of his office.
Yeah.
And
but he doesn't see it as... I guess that he doesn't see his job as a service. He sees it as winning or losing. It's a game.
You're talking
to
about
him.
Trump.
I'm talking about Trump. Sorry, yeah. It's just about winning or losing. And my guess, my armchair psychoanalysis of him would be that he's like, okay, the election is just another game, and I need to get this many points and this many points to win. And he's just seeing it as a game. He's seeing it like the stock market or something. Like, he's a media savvy businessman. Like, he's done a lot of shitty things, but he does have some talents. He's got, doesn't he?
He has a talent in self-marketing. He has a talent in public relations.
Absolutely.
It is kind of he's utilizing the dark arts of communication theory, right? He is able to very succinctly communicate a message which riles up or encourages a fan base. That is a talent of his. I wouldn't say that he is even interested in this in like a game. I don't think he's competitive. I think it is all self-interest, and the self-interest for him is the longer he can stay in office, the longer he can defer lawsuits, the longer he has to potentially pay back his $421 million in loans.
Do you think that's... Hold on. I heard Sarah Silverman making this argument. Do you really think that's why he wants to stay in office? I mean, that is, to me, that's projecting. Like, yes, like, is he actually going to go to prison if he gets out of office?
Yeah.
Do you think that's really the motivation? He doesn't want to be in prison, so he wants to be president.
Yeah, well, that's his only options, isn't it? Because the moment that he loses office, the moment that he loses office and becomes a regular civilian, then he opens himself up to lawsuits.
But he doesn't become a regular civilian.
He does.
He's a media mogul.
He's a
tycoon.
He's a millionaire. Yes, he's a tycoon.
In the eyes of the law, you're saying.
In the eyes of the law, he is a normal person, and the state governments and that kind of thing can just drop a series of lawsuits on his desk.
All right.
It is a very real possibility.
Wow. Wouldn't that be something?
It would be incredible.
And what do you think? What do you think about this? That he won't leave.
Well, this is sort of the secondary threat, right? Is he has framed this election already as the only valid outcome that he will accept is him winning. So any outcome in which that doesn't occur is fraudulent or rigged, and he won't give in, he won't resign. And I just read an article today actually running through a multitude of options in which literally the American democratic experiment could just stalemate and end up failing. There's a whole degree of nuance in it. Maybe if you're interested, I'll put the link in the chapter title of this part, because it is a hefty long read, but there are very real possibilities that, well, it is almost guaranteed that we will not know the outcome of the election on election night, due to the fact that there are so many mail-in ballots this year because of the pandemic, right?
Right.
But Trump has tried to frame things such that all of those mail-in ballots are fraudulent or undemocratic, and the only count that matters is the one on election day, which favors Republicans who don't believe that the pandemic is real and who will go out and vote more at the polls, versus the more rational, in this context, Democrats who are more likely to be staying home, sending in the mail-in ballots, doing things more safely.
Sure.
And so there's this phrasing, I forget what they call it, like a blue surge or a blue flip or something like that, where the concept
Blue wave?
the blue wave, I think, is used to describe an overwhelming, on the day of election, surge of Democratic votes in which it is uncontrovertible that he's lost even on election day based on the polling data from people on site. So the idea of a blue wave is basically that's what everyone has to hope for in terms of getting him out, because only if there is, a 70% on election day Biden vote will it be basically incontrovertible that Trump has lost. And that's what everyone is hoping for. I think, I forget the terminology, so forgive me. But there's a concept with like a blue flip or a blue shift or something, like some terminology like that, which is basically explaining the reality of those two distinctions between the in-person voting and the mail-in voting, where the ballots counted on the day from people who voted at the polls on election day are more likely to be red, Republicans, and as they then go through the mail-in ballots and count them in the days and weeks to come after that, they are more likely to blue, so the overall tallies will shift from the red to the blue, and things which looked like were Republican won seats will end up being Democratic won seats.
Right.
So that process is what Trump is going to try and interfere with, and basically disclaim that all of those late coming votes, which are perfectly legal, are invalid, and try and hold on to power.
It's kind of genius, isn't it? He's basically saying, he's basically just discrediting
The electoral process.
Exactly, and if you do that, I mean, if he wins, then he obviously accepts the victory.
Yeah.
If he loses, then he challenges. Like it's genius,
like,
and it's fraudulent, and it's disgusting.
It's like fascistic, authoritative, like kind of creepy, crazy genius.
Yeah,
like,
and I'm a big like Bill Maher's a big smug piece of shit, but I love his show, and he has really been banging on about this for a year. He was like, I think Trump will not leave the office, and it's starting to feel like it might become true.
Yeah, I think there will be. I mean, this is one of those predictions where I really hope I'm wrong, but I feel like in the course of like 2 podcasts time, we will have had the election, right, and we'll be able to tell. But I genuinely think it is going to be a fucking shit show. It is going to be historic in the most unsettling end of democracy kind of terms.
It already is. Like, it already kind of is.
Here's... I do want to talk more about this electoral stuff a little bit longer, but the only thing that could actually avert this kind of craziness while simultaneously making it 1,000% worse is if Trump dies in 2 weeks' time. Because that is a non-zero possibility. It is legitimately possible that Trump could die in the next fortnight. Before our next podcast, the President of the United States could succumb to coronavirus.
Right. So I read a Vox article that basically outlined what happens, kind of if that happens. It actually outlined all these different
can you
things.
tell me what's the process then? So does Pence become president and then automatically the nominee?
Okay, so set myself up for failure here because I can't remember what they said. But what happens if the president is too sick to do the job? The 25th Amendment explained.
Okay, so that's not necessarily if he dies, is it? 25th is just as if he's incapacitated.
If he's incapacitated coming up to an election, I don't know. Like, I'm just going to be skim reading this, Nick. I'm not really good at that, and I'm a little bit tipsy.
Okay,
but I think they basically said that Pence. Okay, so so how about this? So if Trump were to die in office, Pence would become president. Then get to nominate someone else for vice president, subject to confirmation by both the Republican-controlled Senate and Democratic-controlled House. So theoretically, if Trump were to become badly ill, he could invoke Section 3, send a written declaration to Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Grassley, and then Pence would become acting president, but Trump would still technically be president, and he would take back his presidential powers anytime he wants, booting Pence back down to VP.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. It doesn't answer my curiosity about what happens if Trump dies. Does Pence then automatically end up on the ticket?
Well, you would imagine that Pence becomes president, picks the VP. With the House vote.
Yeah.
That's what you would imagine, right?
Yeah, but that again, it doesn't state necessarily whether or not just because he becomes president, he automatically ends up on ballots. Because you gotta understand here at the moment, something like 3.5 million votes have already been cast in this election from early voting, right? So people have voted for Trump. If Trump dies in 2 weeks' time, what happens to all of the votes that have already been cast?
Right.
Does Pence automatically get substituted into all those things? Do the Republican National Committee have to re-up him as the presidential candidate, but all of those ballots get discarded and they start again? Do they count a Trump vote as a Pence vote? Because I don't think that makes democratic sense. You can't be like, oops, it's someone else.
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's interesting that American politics seems so focused on the individual, and you don't really get that much in Australia. I don't know about New Zealand.
Well, it's the political system here, right? You vote for a party, not a leader.
Well, is that the same in Australia?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what it's here in Australia and in New Zealand. You vote for a party, the party chooses the leader. That's why you have things like, Gillard and Rudd, ousting each other, or Abbott and Morrison and Turnbull. Like all this stuff changes because the party decides who's leading the party, which is who leads the country.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this the other day, that American politics has never been more partisan than now. The left is further left, the right is further right. And what's kind of nice about this time as someone living in Australia and in Australasia, is New Zealand part of Australasia?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Oh, we're happy to have you.
Oceania?
Yeah.
I've
Oceania.
never known how to say it.
I only know it from FIFA.
Oceania?
Oceania, I think.
But there's an IA at the end. Okay, it doesn't matter.
Who cares? That it's not partisan down here. Like you don't, like, not in American families, people grow up. They know that they're a Republican family from the age of 6. Some people, but you don't really get that in Australia or New Zealand.
I would push back on that a little bit.
Well,
I think there's definitely
it's
not to the same extent, but there's definitely, you think about, we grew up in a private school family, right? There were definitely people around us that were raised by, long in the tooth, liberal, conservative, like capital L liberal families whose kids inherit those politics, and they grow up in a rich environment and they go on and lead rich lives, and then they inherit that sort of loyalty, right?
Sure.
I think it does exist. It's just that
it does. That,
political system of Australia facilitates a more bipartisan approach to democracy than the American system does. The Australian guarantees that everyone gets the vote, that you can do preferential voting flows where you can pick all the minor parties that you want and all this kind of stuff, all that sort of safety net there ensures that even the crazy partisan side of Australian democracy is kind of balanced out by a more moderate pressure as well. Whereas the American system is so it's really difficult to actually call it a functioning democracy because there's so much voter suppression. There's so many, voter ID laws. There's gerrymandering. There's the electoral college. There's Trump is actively tried to hamper the postal service because the postal service will deliver ballots, and if the ballots don't get there on time, then they don't count. So many facets of that system are functionally broken. That it kind of, I think because there isn't that sort of equality among every civilian of the United States, it kind of forces that partisanship further and further apart.
Yeah, I that was really well put, I think. I always found it kind of fascinating that my mum, shout out to mum, I'm about to slag you up. That was so, she's so against, when you talk to her, she's so contemptuous of the Republican Party in the United States, but she's a liberal voter, and she has been for most of her life. And it's I just can't help but feel like it's just the shit that she consumes, media wise. And maybe it's the type her friends or the people that she talks to around her age, but to have contempt for the Conservative Party in the United States and then not adore but to despise essentially the equivalent of the Democratic Party in Australia seems a little bit to me like a disconnect. Do you have that with your folks?
Possibly. I mean, my dad is very much anti-Trump. He finds it, both my parents for that matter, but they find it repulsive, really, the state of America over there. I think that there's an
equivalency in the American Conservative Party and the Australian.
I think there used to be, right. But I think that has drifted away a little bit. Like the American conservative movement at the moment is it's hyped up on this cult mentality for a leader who's clearly unfit, clearly doesn't actually espouse the actual conservative ideals of that party, right? He's just a figurehead who kind of do what he wants, but which has enabled them to, get more conservative judges or pass some legislation, right? But that is basically like a cult, as we've talked about it. It's messed up with all of the QAnon conspiracy theories stuff. It's all of this insane gun rights stuff. It's very socially conservative, hyper religious. None of that flavor really appeals to my parents, right? They're not hyper religious. They don't think guns should be legal. They presumably want capable leaders with, classic conservative economic policies of, trickle-down economics and that kind of thing. Though that, my dad's been getting into modern monetary theory a bit, so who knows these days. But the ideologies between the current Republican movement over there and what the Liberal Party over here is doing is kind of the difference between old republicanism in the US and, Trump cultism. And I don't.
The sense I get from your folks, and maybe perhaps from mine, is that there is, like you said, an ideological opposition there between those two parties. But then it's a fiscal conservatism that people down under seem to have, or at least boomers down under seem to have.
Yeah, and I mean, they are socially liberal in a number of ways as well. They support me as a gay person. They voted yes to the referendum, or no, not the referendum, the plebiscite. So yeah, they share, I believe, that sort of classic republicanism, but that's not where that's not where they are now.
Yeah, I think America seems to be at ideological civil war right now.
I mean, it's kind of... I saw someone describe it this way recently, and I found it both terrifying and incredibly insightful. They said that America is in a cold civil war.
Totally.
In that there is this ideological disagreement between the two partisan extremes. And to be honest, even the Democrats, they're fairly centrist left, right? They're not even crazy. There's some members of them, like, Bernie, who want to push further left. But really, it's just fairly mediocre leftism based on an international sort of context.
Yes, but Nick, can I just interrupt you there? Because I don't think I don't think that the left there that you're speaking about the left pushing further left in terms of Bernie Sanders pushing for socialism. But I think what is happening on the ground level is that people are seeing the left as also not so much socialism, but the social elite, and you're going to hate me saying this, but like cancel culture and all that shit, and all this like anti-PC shit, like that to me is where the war seems to be held, is this kind of anti-PC. I mean, this is a microcosm, but anti-PC versus anti-PC versus political correctness, and it's almost like a race war that's happening in the United States. It's identity politics is kind of fueling all this shit.
I disagree. I don't think that's the real fundamental disagreement between those wings at the moment. Maybe it's an aspect of it, and maybe it's one that you're familiar with or exposed to a lot. But I think that the fundamental difference between the two parties as it currently stands is the difference between democracy and not, right? The Republican Party is a minority based on all kind of views and polling data. They're a minority in their beliefs, but they believe that they are owed the majority, right? And
why do you think that?
Because that's what they do. No,
I'm saying, why do you think they think that they're entitled?
Because they believe
they're white,
that their historical primacy when it comes to getting to have the final say, getting to make decisions, being treated as the only real citizens of America should continue into the future at the expense of the equality of women, people of color, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So their historical beliefs as to their supremacy, look, to use the word, is such that they fight against things like voting, right? They fight against their own civilians getting to have a say because they know that if everyone got to have a say, they wouldn't be in power, right? So the primal conflict between these two parties is effectively that of democracy versus autocracy to some extent, right? To the idea of a minority getting to have control of a majority of the Supreme Court, hold on to the Senate, all of these kind of things where they do not actually have, broad popular vote sort of majority. And the Democratic position is it should be more equal, right? Everyone should get to have a vote. The Electoral College is bullshit. The gerrymandering is rigged. We should listen to the majority of people when we enact our policies. That is the fundamental conflict here, right? Between we should be in power and that we're the only valid ones who should be in power. And the democratic opinion, which actually includes and incorporates the idea that sometimes we won't be in power. That's what the fight of the Democrats is at the moment, right? It is to preserve democracy in the sense of, yes, we'd like to take back control so that we could make structural changes here, but fundamentally we accept that sometimes we won't be in power, but if the people have their say and everyone is represented, then that is the will of the people and you get to be in power for a bit. That is functioning democracy. Yeah. And that is the cold civil war here between we refuse to give up our toys and okay, let's share things. Let's act like civil human beings here.
Yeah, it's interestingly put. Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. Do you think that? So, how could the electoral college be abolished? It has to be agreed on by both parties.
It's kind of it's a big ask. I believe because it's a part of the Constitution. It requires a supermajority.
It has to be while the Democrats are in power. Surely.
Yeah, it would have to happen that way. Interestingly, it almost happened like 40 years ago, while Republicans were in power, because they. I can't remember the circumstances. I think Reagan almost signed something into power to abolish it, and it was considered quite a bipartisan thing. It was like, this isn't working. We should get rid of it. But then it got sort of stymied and it hung around. But the Electoral College thing is complicated because as a part of the Constitution, it needs a supermajority in Senate and the House. I think, or maybe it passes in the House and a supermajority in the Senate in order to make a change to the Constitution, which is unlikely. The interesting workaround, and this was something I'd been following slightly for a little while, is so the Electoral College. This is a bit of a tangent, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. But for anyone that doesn't know, the idea is basically that rather than going by a first past the post system, where the majority of votes for, say, candidate Donald Trump or candidate Joe Biden is added across the entirety of the country, and the person with the most votes wins. They instead have like a referred system where each state has a certain number of electoral college members. I think there is 538 in total. That's why 538, the website, was named 538. And to win the majority, to win the presidency, you need to win 270 votes in the electoral college. Those electoral colleges are assigned per state. So I think California has 55, and other smaller states might have 3, 4, 5, that sort of thing. The problem comes from the disproportionate allocation of those electoral votes to the number of people living in each state. So a place like California has 55 electoral votes, but they also have millions of people, whereas a place like, I don't know, Arizona, which is basically desert and has 4 million people in it, but gets 3 or 4 votes, the proportionate weight of a voter in a rural area versus a voter in a densely populated area is so much higher, which favors republicanism.
So is it proportionate to area and not population?
I'm not sure the exact math through which electoral votes are allocated per state. I don't know, but I do know that it is disproportionate as a population. So, like I said, a California voter's vote is effectively 1/10 the power of a Arizonan vote, because these are all made up numbers, but the 3 electoral votes that a rural, Central American state gets is a higher, the number of votes you get as a member of that state is higher than you would get in a densely populated state.
But there are statistically more people who align with the Democratic Party than the Republican Party.
Correct.
In America.
This is how you end up with the Hillary Clinton thing, where Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes by the will of the American people who turned up to vote for one of those 2 candidates on the day. 3 million more people wanted Hillary to be president. But those voters were in the wrong place. Those voters were in places where those electoral votes were already confirmed or devalued, and the small number of rural voters in the center and or in these swing states ended up getting that 270 required to be president. Anyway, the whole point of that was to explain that there is this weird kind of compact which has been set up in which a whole bunch of states have signed into law the idea that if every other state or a minimum number of states also signs this act into law, we will ignore the electoral college system altogether and basically donate our votes to the most popular nationwide candidate.
So it needs to be done at a state level and not a federal level.
It has to be done at a state level. Wow. So I think something like it's called like the National Electoral College Compact or something like that. Don't quote me. But the idea is it's very clever, actually. So once enough states sign on to this concept and enact into law a bill, the identical bill, such as they represent more than 270 electoral votes, right? That's the minimum threshold of the Electoral College. Once enough of those states have enacted this policy, then the law basically turns on for everyone. And that then binds each of these states to ignore the votes of the individual state and favor the popular vote result nationwide.
Right.
And then they are compelled to vote in accordance with the popular vote nationwide. And because they hold more than 270 votes, they thus can decide the presidency based on the popular vote. It is kind of genius. I don't know if I explained that clearly enough. Do you follow what I was saying?
I was following. And I'm pissed. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing and like a genius way to avoid having to change the Constitution, which requires this crazy supermajority, which Republicans would stranglehold on the Senate, would make very difficult to do, and enable the will of the people to decide the elections. It's kind of amazing. And they're getting surprisingly close. I think there's another 2 states which are about to sign on at this, or have it up for the election this coming year. And then another 2 in another couple of years as well. And at that point, you're starting to get very close to that 270 mark. So it might be something that actually does come into effect.
You think so? It's kind of akin to what we talked about last week, like with daylight saving. It's like this redundant thing that just still operates. It's like daylight savings, the Electoral College, and signatures. Get rid of all those 3 things. There's like redundant, archaic things that have just somehow hung around in our society.
Well, I mean, it's funny you bring that up, but John Oliver last night was talking about signatures because electoral, like mail-in ballots, are being rejected for not matching the signatures that people have on file. And signatures, my signature looks like one thing one day and another thing another day. And so when people have validly, signed a form but done it in a different way to what the government had on file, their votes are being thrown away. So you're very much correct. The signatures are within that category of thing to throw away.
Yeah, you had a. We talked about this months ago, maybe years ago, but you had a great. I can't remember what the bit was, but it was that it's just like it's like write your name, but do it with your own like flair. And it's like do it like a little squiggle, It's so stupid. Like we're obviously not going to have signatures in 50 years' time. Like it seems so stupid that we have them now. I feel so stupid every time I write a signature. I'm like, I don't even remember. I don't even remember what my last signature was. How am I going to remember what this? I don't know. Like it's only so that like if push comes to shove and we end up in court, that we'll get some is it a stenographer that will be able to analyze my J's?
No, a stenographer just writes down what happens in a court. But I know what you're talking about. Like there's like a handwriting expert or whatever. But that's such bunko science anyway.
Is it? I don't even know. It's so silly. There's a lot of silliness in the world. Luckily, you've got deep thought to ground you.
Yeah, and if you want more of this kind of stuff, you can just scroll down in that old app feed. Why don't you pick out like an old episode? if you scroll down in that feed and you're like, oh, that's the earliest episode that I listened to. Why do you keep scrolling? See what else is down there.
Not too old. Please.
Not too old. Stick to the 50s up. But
50s up. Yeah, we might have to talk about archiving. I don't know.
Yeah. But there's plenty of other ways you can interact with us. You can send an email to deepthought@gmail.com and send your comments and suggestions. I got a lot of feedback about the brown foods hypothesis, and everyone loves it.
You did.
Everyone loves it. I haven't checked the mailbag, but I do believe that everyone loved it and agreed, and there were no complaints.
Well, we did a poll on Instagram, and it was a fucking landslide, dog. It was a landslide.
Instagram, what is that? That's not scientific. No one has been able to disprove me in a food combination yet. Twitter.com/deepthought, Facebook.com/deepthought, Instagram, deepthought, SoundCloud, deepthought, and head on to Apple Podcasts if you haven't been there in a while. Click the old 5 stars button, leave us a review. It's a very nice thing of you to do.
I thought I'd give a little update on the old weight loss situation.
Oh, yeah.
I got a lot of messages about this whole weight gain thing. Some supportive, some not so supportive. And I thought I would read just a couple of messages that I received, and
because this was quite a personal thing that you revealed on the show.
It was. I revealed on the last episode that I found out that I had gained 7 kilos, aka 2 chihuahuas.
I think. Well, probably more than 2 chihuahuas. They're quite small.
I actually think it was 3 chihuahuas and 2 cats.
Yeah.
Worth of weight.
Yeah. During quarantine, you're in lockdown.
Look, I got a really nice message from what I think is now officially my best friend Sean, he sent me the most genuinely supportive message.
Aww.
He was like, "Do not feel bad for yourself." Like he even gave me his weight gain as a comparison point. And he was like, he was very supportive. And I thought I might just read out some other messages of support that I got.
Oh yeah, lovely.
Here's one from Katie, who I think listens most weeks. She sent me a lovely photo. I don't know if you can see that, Nick.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a photo of a model, and it says, "Nothing tastes as good as skinny feels."
Yeah.
So she sent me that I assume, as supportive. Yep.
I think maybe it's like reverse psychology sort of support.
Yeah.
Like you meant to take it sort of ironically.
Yeah, so thanks, Katie.
I think we can give her the benefit of the doubt there. I think that's still supportive.
You know what? I know Katie very well, and I really don't think we can give her the benefit of the doubt there. I think I know exactly where she was coming from.
Okay.
So thank you, Katie. And I got another message of support from Dave Weber.
Oh yeah, you just sent him that cup overseas. Like quite an amazing, kind of beautiful gesture, right?
I sent it. It was really nice, and he sent me a message after listening to the last episode. All it said was, "You fat fuck."
Okay.
So thank you, Dave and Katie, for keeping me going and keeping me honest, and I appreciate all the support that's poured in. And update: it's been 2 weeks, Nick. I'm 83. I've lost 2 kilos already, baby.
Wow, that seems unhealthy. Why?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing that I realized, and you might poke holes in this.
Okay.
Because Emma poked a lot of holes in it. But I realized that sometimes, and I'm not condoning this, I'm not a doctor, but sometimes if you only eat once a day, the next day you drop weight. Like you drop weight. So the other day on Friday, I bought this shitty frozen pizza, and I know that's bad for you in itself. I bought the shitty frozen pizza, but I wasn't hungry. I don't get hungry around breakfast time. I get hungry around 1 p.m. maybe. And I had one slice of this frozen pizza, and then for the rest of the day, I just didn't eat. The next day, I weighed myself. I had dropped 2 kilos.
That's deeply worrying, actually.
It is. But I've maintained it. So it's just held off. Okay. So I think I just needed 1 day of starvation. And that kind of does it. So I feel like as I said before, I'm not a doctor, but
Clearly.
if you don't eat, you don't gain weight.
Yeah. I would like to offer the counter argument, which is don't do that. Anyone, please just watch what you eat. Don't eat like greasy foods or frozen foods, and cut back your calorie intake in a measured sense. Maybe eat sort of 70-80% of your normal intake and avoid those, chocolate bars. And I think you'll find in a measured manner with a degree of, positive exercise and that sort of thing that you'll be able to work towards that goal in a much more sustainable and healthy fashion rather than this kind of fad diet goop bullshit.
Just find what's right. Listen to Nick, listen to me, and find what's right for you.
Or just listen to me, maybe, medically speaking. So I would recommend not that from Michael. But that's just me. Also not a doctor.
That's funny.
But probably more informed, I guess, famously.
You are arguably more of a doctor than I am. Even though you have no qualifications, you are more of a doctor than
I don't know that counts for anything.